Well, hello and welcome to another how to paint cars tutorial with Dave. And today we're going to do an absolute classic British car, the Morris Minor Traveller van. So before we start, I thought for once we'd actually go through the checklist properly of the things you need. So, have you got your watercolor pad? Okay, I say a watercolor pad. I mean, you can see the one I've got there is relatively cheap. It's by Faber-Castell, 40 pages, which is quite good value. 140 grams per square meter. You don't want it any thinner than that. The thinner you make the paper, the less well it takes the watery color wash. And A4, because it fits my scanner, A3 doesn't. So I don't know why that didn't come up properly. Next is pencil and eraser. When you're constructing this kind of sketch, I would normally start with pencil. Some of the ones I've done, I've gone straight to ink because you can't see the pencil marks very clearly. Ordinary HB, run-of-the-mill HB pencil and a rubber eraser. Uh, have you got your ink fine liner pens? You don't need a full pack like that. As long as you've got a 0.1 millimeter or 0.2 or 0.3 will do just as well. That's all you need. Do make sure they're water resistant though. I bought some in the past and the moment I put a watercolor wash on top of it, it goes everywhere, which you don't really want with your fine liners. Brush pens, yes. Fine liners, no. So your watercolors, and that's my trusty watercolor set. It's Winsor & Newton, and I've used it for quite a long time. It wasn't cheap at all, but I really like the color quality of it, and it's lasted well. I say 4 years, going on for 5. And finally, the brush pens. My daughter Jen gave me these for Christmas. And they really are the magic ingredient. I hadn't hardly ever used brush pens before, but when one of my favourite urban sketch artists was doing a tutorial using them, I thought, oh, hello, there's something going here. So, if you've got everything, you're ready, let's go. Let's start the Morris Minor. So there you go. Now, if you're thinking, hang on, what's all those smudgy marks in the background? Yes, this is one of the ones where I did sketch it out in pencil first because I'm playing with proportion quite a bit compared to my reference photographs, and I wanted to get everything right before I started. So yes, I am cheating like that. Start with your headlight in the quite a bit to the left of the center, this one, and we're taking up a huge, great amount of the paper as well. Now, try and judge the distance. Now, look where you put your headlight, okay? If you've got it roughly in the same place that I have, then you're going to make a smaller headlight, or what looks like a smaller one, quite a long way towards the left. Look at the distance between the left-hand edge of your right-hand headlight, which you drew last time, and the left-hand edge of the page. Now you want to go more than halfway before you even start drawing the oval of the headlight. And remember, it's got to be smaller and thinner than the closest one because it's further away. And then can you do those two little side lights just underneath? Now, it jumped up again. I don't know why it does that on the scanner sometimes. I really don't. So can we draw in the top and the sides of what will be the radiator grille? I say that, it's actually a little bit of trim just above and beside the radiator grille, but that'll do for now, okay? It should go from just above the right-hand side light to just before the left-hand side light and above it, just like you see there, with a gently curving top and sides which slant inwards from the top to the bottom. Not by a huge amount, but significantly. Okay, bumper time now. Now look how it comes out from between the left-hand side light underneath that and the radiator grille trim. Okay, and it's a big capital C. It's that simple. Now, can you draw that line from the side light curving down and round and past underneath the right hand headlight, and then curving upwards towards the right just for a little bit, which is going to make that edge of the bumper. Okay, try and get that as accurate as you possibly can, because it'll help you so much when you're doing the wheel arches. And now drawing another parallel line underneath the top edge of the bumper you just drew, and maybe put one in the middle as well, because it's quite a flat top on that bumper there. It's a little bit unusual in the say up until the 70s it was all curved chrome bumpers. Can you see I've started drawing the wheel arch in from the top of the bumper as well? Now from the top of the headlight, the right hand headlight, you want to draw that curving line, curving upwards towards the right and then back down as well, which is going to make that wing of the car. And then you want another curved line from just to the right at the bottom of the headlight, curving up almost to meet the wing line, the top of the wing, which you've just drawn, but not quite. And that'll give us that quite extravagant fender shape. Okay, now go inside the chrome trim where you're going to put the radiator, and you can see how the radiator fits there. It's much closer to the chrome trim on the left hand side than on the right hand side, and that gives us this exaggerated perspective which I'm aiming for, if I get it right. And I think I have, because I've already done it in pencil. Can you see the little badge above the chrome trim as well, above the radiator? That's looks like it's more than halfway along because of the exaggerated perspective we're going for. You've got two little curving lines coming off the top of that. Now, you also want another line slightly to the left from the edge of the badge, the top left hand edge, curving up about the same length. Then, look at the left hand headlight. Curve up and round and make the wing there. It's very gentle curve. It's more pronounced by the headlight, but then it kind of starts to flatten out a little bit. Okay. Now, if you look on the front of the bonnet above the badge, slightly to the right, you've got that shape like an upside down smoking pipe. Okay, smoker's pipe. That's the where the little M for Morris is going to be. And then gently curve that line almost parallel to the right hand wing line, although it doesn't curve downwards and you don't go that far, just to give you the top edge of the bonnet. And already the face of the Morris is emerging. So carry on that wing line, and at the end of it, on the right hand end, you want a slightly slanted little line, and then that curving piece of trim, which you can see I've done just above that wing there. Don't forget to do the edge of the bonnet as well on the right hand side, curving up from that piece of trim. And we're going to use that trim. That's going to come in very handy in a later stage. So we join the two top edges of the bonnet up. So I would draw a line down from the left hand side, curving round to meet the trim which you've just made. And give me a pretty straight line, this one, the bonnet line. You can exaggerate it a little bit more when we start to put the windscreen in. Okay. So can you see what happens? I've just extended the line of the wing and the fender a little bit further past where I've made the edge of the bonnet coming down, joining the door. And take that down. Now, I want you to, if you've got a pencil with you, which you should have, draw a line from the bottom of the bonnet and try and get it slanting slightly upwards and going right through, because you'll be able to join that wheel arch, the next wheel arch. It shouldn't be slanting upwards 45 degrees, between 20 and 30 degrees, I would say, if you want me to get technical. I haven't taken a protractor to it, but that's what I'd do. And then curve the rest of the wheel arch to the right down to meet where you've done the draw line, where you've done where that line, the slanting line you just drew at the bottom of the car, where it meets that, and just curve it round to meet it. Really getting on now as we're putting on in the windscreen. Now can you see the slanting edge at the bottom of the windscreen actually curves round, whereas the straight line of the bonnet doesn't. And that's fine, that's absolutely fine. Now do try and get your angles right. The left hand edge of the windscreen should be slanting more than the right hand edge, not by a huge amount, but just about discernible. Don't forget we do the line inside the outline of the windscreen as well, which is going to make our trim and our rubber seal. And then also extend the line of the edge of the bonnet up parallel to the edge of the windscreen, but not quite as far up, and just curve it round at the top. Brilliant, you're doing so well. Now we're going to make the front side window. Now, can you take the curving line of the trim above the right hand wing and just curve it gently upwards towards the right? And you want to go about as far as you did to the left from that, from the edge of the bonnet coming down to the wing there, okay? And that is how far you want your window. So do the bottom line of the window from the edge of the right hand edge of the bonnet, slanting very gently upwards, and I mean only very gently upwards, a fairly straight line this. Then look at the line you've done to the right and parallel to the right of the edge of the windscreen, the right hand edge, and that line wants to be curving up and away. Sorry, you want to draw a line curving up to the right and away from, tapering away from the bottom edge of the windows. Not by much, just enough discernible. And then join the two up with a diagonal line slanting slightly downwards to the right. Not a lot, but downwards. And then do the interior outline and then the divisions, okay? So you want to make a triangular front window out of those two panels, with more of it, the majority of it, going to the squarish one behind. Now we're going to put the edge of the door in. There's a lovely curve, so go noticeably past the window line. I haven't drawn the trim all the way to the door line because there's a little handle there, which I'm going to go over shortly. But you want to go a little bit past the end of the trim, not a huge amount, but try and judge it from looking at the picture here. Then you want this lovely bowing out curve, bowing out towards the right, and then in a longer curve down to the left, and then just when it's just above the line at which we're going to do at the bottom of the door, curve it back round to the right again. So you get this inverted, very thin S shape, long S shape. Okay. Now take the bottom line of the car and take it past where you've made that edge of the door, but not a huge amount. You only want to take it just a little bit, and that's where we're going to make the rear wheel arch. But first, we're going to start drawing in some of the wood frame. The Traveller van, most people remember it particularly because of that wood frame. Somebody once said to me it was like taking a drive in a Tudor cottage. I have no idea if that's true or not. So you make a parallel line, parallel to the door line, which we drew last time, but don't go right up to where the windows start. And then draw another slanting line, slightly slanting upwards to the right. Don't go very, very far with this. You want to do a shorter distance than the distance from the left to the right of the square front window, less than that, and then start to curve it down again, but only a little way because we need to put the wheel arch in. And we'll start to do that now. So the little line you just drew coming down, slanting slightly to the right, I want you to draw a curve from there almost to the bottom edge of the car, but not quite, because we're going to put in the little running board which they have. Can you see I've drawn it parallel, or almost parallel to the bottom of the car, but just in a little bit, and just tapering slightly towards it. So we put in the rest of the wheel arch there. Now that bit which looked like it was going to be the back of the car, that's actually part of the wood frame. So you want to curve round to the right downwards past that, and then go up and join up almost that top line which you made, which is slightly below the level of the windows, and add in the lines, and that really is the frame at the back of the car. And also, can you see how I finished off the wheel arch to join up with the slanting line we made before, to join up, and we stop the curve where we join up with that. You've really done a lot of the bodywork of the car now. So can you see I've drawn that oblong now, which is going to be the side rear windows, on backside windows, I don't know if you call it that. Now I've joined that up to the wooden frame coming down, and then I've drawn inside that. I didn't take that line parallel to the left hand edge of the window, the front window trim, and I've taken out not quite as far as that, and then I've drawn an outline, a curved outline inside it, which is like a rectangle slanting, sloping away with the perspective. Completed that rounded rectangle now, and then just drawn a parallel line parallel to the right hand edge of that window, and that's the back of the car done. I've also did a line from the top of the trim in the front side window, curving slightly down parallel to the top of the side rear window, meeting up with the bodywork of the car there. Now at this stage I drew in the curve which made the roof. It rises to its apex really just about slightly to the right of the top right hand corner of the windscreen or windshield, and it rises to its apex there, and then tapers nicely down to join the roof at the back, and also curves nicely down to join the left hand edge of the windscreen. Okay, now can you see from the right hand edge of the door, that bit above it on the roof, I've just drawn in those two curving lines, which are like I don't know, kind of like a joint or a panel, which is there. Nearly done on the bodywork. In fact, nearly done on the whole thing. So what I've added now are the wheels. Now, wheels are tricky whichever way you do them. It is worth spending a bit of time and trouble getting the ovals right. I've drawn in 3 ovals, each one progressively thinner in proportion to its height, one inside the other for the 2 wheels on the right hand side. Look how the outer one interacts with the curve of the wheel arch, because it starts from just inside, just to the left of the top of the wheel arch, and then curves round and gets closer at the bottom right hand part of the wheel arch. And you can see the bottoms will be slightly flattened as well, because it's of the weight of the car and it's standing on the ground. Take your time, wait until you do something that you're happy with. Now if you look at the left hand tyre, well, I've got that little mark there on the bumper, which is not quite halfway along the radiator grille from the left. And I've done a little semicircle joining up the bumper again, just underneath the bottom right hand corner of the radiator. And that's the sort of thing you should be looking for. Which marks are helping me out here and helping me judge where to go? So you need your paints now. Now I went back to traditional. I experimented with using just brush pens, and we didn't come up with bad results. And also with starting with something other than the wheels and the wheel arches, but I went back to what I know here. You can see I've got this mostly purple on the front tyre, although there is a bit of blue on the rear tyre as well. And I kind of let this seep together with the very light green which I painted on the wing. The main colour of the car is obviously green, but it's quite a bit darker green. I like the way I had a purpley grey or a grey purple which kind of bled into, interacted with the bottom of the front fender wing. And I quite liked how that happened. I also put just a little bit of sienna on underneath the front tyre and between the front and rear tyres as well. So you can see here I've painted in all of the bodywork, but this is just my first layer of colour in the for the main, and that's why it's kind of blotchy and the fender is a darker green than the rest of it and so on. I also used the sienna colour as well for the wooden frame of the car. You might notice I've just added a little bit more blue to the wheel arches as well. So I really got going with the paints here. I used, this is after another couple of layers of green. I mixed my olive green, which I used a light coat for the first layer, mixed it with a bit of Viridian and did a slightly darker layers in places and mixed that with a little bit of black as well. Can you see I've also, on the wheels, I've also used grey to highlight some of the contours of the wheels. Now, I did more work definition on the wheels with grey here. I'm still just using watercolour paint. And then a very, very sort of light blue application to do the mark out the interior of the car, the windows you can see through the windscreen and the side windows. I used a darker kind of blue because it was more of a purpley colour thinking about it, the first layer, but also had a touch of the ochre to green to do the rear seat. And the interior is looking okay now. There's more work to do, but it's okay. I also used a bit of grey on the front edge of the front tyre. This is where I put my put the watercolors away and started working with the brush pens. And with the set of the brush pens, there's a water brush. It's a nylon brush which has a reservoir of water in it, and you can spread it over use it over areas where you've used the brush paints, and it helps spread the color quite nicely. And you can see I've given a lot more darker definition now to around the radiator and to the front edge of the car, and also where the bonnet panel, where the wing carries on past that as well. Continued work on adding shade and definition using a dark green brush pen, a slightly lighter green brush pen as well, and the water brush. Can you see I've also started darkening the front wheel arch, and I've definitely darkened the rear wheel arch as well. Also, I did some work on using grey, using the edge of the water brush on the nib of the black brush pen, picking up the grey and using that to highlight the areas, or certainly to pull out areas of the interior. Although I did use a blue on some. I'm not really sure why I decided to do it, but I didn't want to darken it too much. And now I've started using a fine liner to draw in some of the details. I've done the windscreen wiper and the steering wheel as well, and added some definition there. Did some more work on the wheels, still not quite happy with them, but getting closer to what I wanted. You might notice the underside of the side of the car as well. I put a blue-grey onto the running board and just spread some grey using the water brush on the black brush pen, spread some grey out between the wheels. I'm very close to a finish now. You can see I used the fine liner now to outline the trim on the windscreen and the side windows, to add the rubber seal to the windscreen and add a little bit of shadow and definition. I've also used a brown brush pen to give some shadows, some darker areas of the wooden frame. Used the fine liner to pick out more details on the front wheel and on the rear wheel. Orange brush pen for the side lights. I should have said before on the previous stage I used the grey off the brush pen to just give a little bit of the grey inside the headlight, and I've added some details, some shadows, more shadows inside the headlights. And we're pretty close to a finish. Oh, have a look at the front bumper as well, because as I said, it's got that strange almost square top to it, and a lot of the bodywork was reflecting, so I'd used a lighter green pen with a touch of darker blue on top of it as well. And there you can see that's pretty much the finish. So even darker on the wheel arches, a little bit more darkness underneath the car. Most important thing, the headlights, but also particularly shading in the radiator grille, which I tend to leave for last because hopefully when you do it, it's a quite dramatic transformation. And there it is, ladies and gents. There we've got our Morris Minor Traveller. So not a lot remains for me to do except to say I'm going to take you very quickly through the stages now, and then we'll say farewell. Ready? Go.